chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
All right, good day, everyone, and welcome to College Volleyball Weekly, episode 244. We're going to call this part one because we're going to have our Big West takeover in the morning, and then later on today, we're going to have the rest of the nation takeover, aka Dan and Jay. But on screen with me now is Theo Edwards of CSUN. Brad Rothschild will be coming in hot. I think maybe wife may be going through some morning sickness, so he's a little delayed with baby on the way. Theo, great day to you, and always looking forward to talking ball from this last weekend with you.
Good morning, Rob. There's a lot to talk about, man. I think it's going to be a good episode.
Oh, yeah, and definitely. And one of the historic weeks this last week was overshadowed, the 65 matches, by a recent local tragedy to both Theo, myself, and Brad, the Southern California wildfires. We had up to 5 pretty major fires hitting the area, with 3 still burning as we speak. And just to give you a heads up, Palisades fire is only 11% contained as of last night. Eaton is 27% contained, while the Hearst is 89% contained. So a lot of homes lost, particularly 150,000 people have been displaced or affected. 40,000 plus acres have burned. So, and within that 150,000, a lot of our volleyball community has been affected. And just the ones that I know of firsthand, Paul Sunderland, famous broadcaster, former Olympian, his house was one of the houses that was spared in his community. Miles Partain, UCLA setter and Olympian on the beach. Unfortunately, he and his family lost their home. Carrie Klein-Delson, longtime friend of mine, owner of Sunshine Volleyball Club. Her family lost her home, as well as a lot of girls in their Pasadena and their club right there in Palisades. Randy Stoklos and a couple of his neighbor buddies stood the fight, and they were able to save his house. Him and a few neighbors hosed down and fought off the fire in their neighborhood. And I know there are multiple NCAA athletes that are affected by this, because a bunch of them are from the Pacific Palisades area. And I know they've gone on with their weeks, but I can't even imagine having to have that in the back of my mind and go through competing. So, and we know there are far other people in the community. And I know, Theo, you mentioned a few, and we want to get your thoughts on what we witnessed last week historically.
Yeah, I mean, this was the most horrific scene I think that Los Angeles has seen in a really, really long time. And you know, I think the video and the interview that Randy Stoklos did is definitely one that will echo across the volleyball community for a really, really long time. And, you know, Rob and I were just talking before we hopped on here, the magnitude of this fire and how fast it moved. You know, there's a lot of conversation about the challenges that LA has had with these fires, and the lack of preparedness, which I feel like has kind of overshadowed the reality of how insane this truly was in comparison to anything that we've seen in the past. And for those that live in Southern California and have grown up here like the rest of us, I mean, the fires are not uncommon. They become kind of part of what we're used to. But this was unbelievable. 99 mile per hour winds and fire covering miles in matters of minutes. I mean, we're talking about just unprecedented, a series of events, just the perfect storm, the perfect combination of everything lining up for disaster. And the number of people that I know personally who have been affected by this is just, the list goes on and on and on. And it's just absolutely heartbreaking. And you know, there's conversations about the insurance and what are people going to do, but the reality is they need help. And there's just so much devastation and so much challenge up ahead for us. And my heart just goes out to all those that have been affected, and you know, just doing our best to support them.
Yeah. Brad Rothschild joins us from UC San Diego, come in, jump on. And we were just reflecting on the events of last week. Obviously, a lot of people in our community have been affected by these Southern California wildfires. And although the focus has been Palisades, there are up to 5 fires burning. And Brad, I know a few of your athletes and a lot of close friends have were affected because the volleyball community is large, but it's small. And we know handfuls of people have lost everything. But wanted to give you a chance to comment on what we saw this last week.
Yeah, I think Theo kind of summed it up perfectly right as I jumped on there. It's just heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, and so tragic to see for so many people in the volleyball community, outside the volleyball community, and affects, I think most of our teams across the nation are all pretty similar. We got a lot of great kids, a lot of great families, whether they live in those areas or they're firefighters or they have family members who are firefighters. There's just so many people who have been affected in so many different and various ways. And even like for me, it reminds me back of 2019 and the fires of Malibu, and the Wolseley fire. And I remember waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, having to evacuate the house we were living in, and seeing fires roll over the hills of Calabasas and Thousand Oaks, and just driving away and thinking like, whoa, what the heck is, like, I don't know, the next time I'm going to come back. And we were very lucky and blessed that firefighters protected the entire neighborhood. And there's been, seems like, I don't know the figures, but it seems like there's been a lot more people who have been affected with those houses actually just being burnt away. And that, I can't imagine what that feeling's like when you're driving back or you're looking on the news and seeing that. It's got to be so surreal, and figuring out what's next, where to go from there. And yeah, it's tough to wrap your head around at all, but thoughts and prayers and just support for everyone who's been affected or has had family members affected or friends affected, because I think every team within the country and within the nation has had some effect or some impact through friends of friends or family members, or again, having loved ones who are fighting fires.
Yeah.
Image of the homes on PCH. I'm sure you guys have seen that, right? The homes in Malibu, that entire stretch, they lost over 100 homes. That image is just incredibly surreal. It doesn't even seem like real life.
Yeah. Yep. Without a doubt. I just also want to add that, just to do our small part here, trying to get some resources on our description that you can go to if you're in need of assistance of any kind. And we'll always take messages if you're in need of any kind of assistance here. And as I'm sure with you guys being coaches and great mentors that you are, you're open to discussion as well. So I would like to make that open to everyone. And I'm sure the guys on the rest of the non-West Coast crew will be available to you. And probably should fill Brad in. We're going to do a 2.0. We're a Big West takeover this morning. So because you guys, are the guys available on this time today. But I definitely wanted to say shout out to firefighters, civil servants, police officers, all those that are assisting in the efforts. We know that this is, gnarly, can't even describe it, but what they're going through right now to continue to fight the fires that are still active. And we got to just hope and pray that we're expecting more Santa Ana winds today, tomorrow. You just got to hope for favorable conditions at this point. So, because we definitely cannot stop what's coming in weather-wise, but we can pray that it's a milder rendition of what we saw last week. Definitely pray for restoration, healing, reconstruction, and all of that, because that community, all those communities are going to be going through so much. For sure the next few months, but probably I don't know if that community can truly heal after something like this, because it's just that devastating. So with that, let us move into our normal segment. And we still had a lot of volleyball last week. By my count, is a minimum of 65 matches last week, with Brad playing 60 of those, it seemed like. So like I said, by my count, 65. I know there's more because a lot of the schedule had been put out by the time I had my master schedule made. So let's start with two big news items. First year program, Barry University, and I had to look it up. They're the Buccaneers, undefeated, 3-0, beating Erskine in a 5-set thriller and Barton twice. So they have a thing for the Conference Carolinas, and then they take on FDU of the NEC next week. But want to get your guys' thoughts on FDU. I'm sorry, of Barry.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So there are weeks coming into this podcast where I have tons of time to watch volleyball, and then there's weeks like the Santa Barbara tournament where we're on the road, 3 matches in 3 days, and I don't get to see everything. I get to stay up to date. I watch all the scores. I look at the stats, right? But you don't get to see it with your own eyes. And Barry's one of those. But winning is hard. And if anybody who's been around this game or been around college athletics, they know winning is hard. And to be 3-0 as a brand new program is absolutely incredible. And shot goes out to their program and those players, as they are obviously playing some really good ball right now. And I'm excited to see them this week, and they go up against FDU, and it'll be really, really cool to watch how their season unfolds.
All right. Brad, thoughts on Barry University with head coach Leonid Yellen, who I'm not familiar with.
No, and they've actually been out on the recruiting trail quite a lot. But I've only crossed paths with Charles Norman, who's their assistant coach and one of the recruiting coordinators. But looking through their roster after seeing some of their stats, and looks like there's a good bit of kids from Florida, which makes sense. And then a few kids from outside of the country and some international players. And Philippe Tien went off, to say the least, and kind of was their big gun. And he's a kid from Germany. So pretty cool. And like, if you're from Germany, you get a chance to go move to Miami and play college volleyball. It's not a bad setup. It's not a bad lifestyle there at all. And also underrated mascot for Barry, the parrot with the pirate hat on.
It's a buccaneer, not a pirate.
A buccaneer hat on the parrot is a heck of a mascot. So I'm excited to see some alternate jerseys come out for them too as they get progressed throughout the season.
Yep, good stuff. Yeah, Philip Tyne averaging, had to pull it up because he had some great numbers this weekend, 3.64 kills per set, while their other outside, Colton Barras, 4.11 kills per set. So again, Barry University, first year program, independent, 3-0, heading up against FDU. Another team with a first win in program history, another independent or IVA team, Catawba, which is in North Carolina, who took it on another Conference Carolina team, King, 3-1. What do we know about Catawba? And
Ferg's doing what he does, and they had the grad transfer. I believe his name was Trevor Phillips from Ball State, who split a little bit of time last season as one of the outside hitters for Ball State, and seems to be their guy. He got a bunch of attempts, I think 30 plus attempts. And yeah, I mean, Fergie knows what he's doing. He can coach some volleyball, and it's cool to see him back on the sideline coaching.
Well, just for those who like, who's this Fergie guy? Is it the singer of the Black Eyed Peas? Who's it? No, Fergie is Bill Ferguson, who was a coach at USC, who brought them to 4 NCAA Final Fours in 6 years. Went over to the women's side at Wake Forest and is now the head coach at Catawba. So, Theo, jump on.
Yeah, I was surprised to see, obviously Bill has one heck of a record and a career, and but they got a roster with some size. I mean, they got some decent guys on the roster, and I was impressed, man, to beat a team like King, who every single year has it seems like they have a fantastic late run and are at least contending in terms of their conference. I mean, Catawba is a force to be reckoned with, man. I'm excited. You got so many new teams, and just seeing the opportunities for our men to continue to play at the next level is just so exciting for me. So this is great news.
Yeah, I'm looking at the makeup of their roster. They've got guys from South Carolina, Louisiana, North Carolina, Virginia, Texas, Pennsylvania, Illinois. So a pretty well-rounded out roster, at least from the Midwest eastward. So powerhouse Catawba next to Barry, 2 independent schools, really gearing up for this season. Let's go over to one of the top matches of the week, and I'm sure that it was on your radar. I figured I'd just put it out there for all of us to discuss. Harvard and Hawaii series. Want to get your guys' thoughts, being that Hawaii is one of our fellow Big West teams. With Theo shaking his head like that, I got to go to him first.
Yeah, I think this was some pretty exciting stuff, right? I thought that last year we had an opportunity to host Harvard and had them in our gym, and they had some young talent and some experience with that group, and I thought that they battled and did some nice things in their West Coast swing, and so getting to see them open up and be on the island with Hawaii, I thought would be a really great opportunity for them. And obviously the first match and the first night, Hawaii beat them 3-0, and what looked like was going to be an easy battle on the island turned into an epic duel. And for those that didn't watch it, on night 2 in the 5th set, Harvard was up 14-11 and Hawaii found a way to pull it off and score essentially 6 unanswered and win that match. But man, I think, for anybody who's ever played on the island and been in that environment, just watching some of the clips and the videos from that match, it is a tough place to play. And those Hawaiians get incredibly excited for some good volleyball, and they were so respectful and just so stoked to watch a great match. And Harvard took it to Hawaii and definitely had them on the ropes and couldn't close the door. And man, that opposite for Hawaii is one heck of a volleyball player. So I think we're going to be talking about him for quite some time. Christian, is it Tatrinsky?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, he is one heck of a volleyball player, and we're gonna say his name quite a bit on this podcast. And in that second match, he had 18 kills, hit 378, and he was tough to stop down the stretch. So exciting volleyball, man. But it's January, so anything can happen, and that's the fun part.
Yeah, week 2 of January at that. I want to remind everyone.
It is some early volleyball happening.
All right, Brad, your take on Hawaii Harvard.
Yeah, the night 1, right, kind of what we expected. Then night 2, just a lot of up and downs and a lot of, you can tell Hawaii's got some new pieces, learning how to play together and figuring out their lineup still, rotating a few different pins, a few different middles, till they kind of find, between all the talent they have and the depth they have, figuring out what their rotation lineup looks like and how it's all going to flow. I think based on what Thea talked about, down 11-14, Finn Kearney, freshman opposite outside hitter from Arizona, comes in and goes on a serving run. And I think that's whether he's on the court or not starting, he's probably going to be that serving sub for the rest of the season just because of that run alone, which is pretty damn impressive. And then you look at Harvard, and with what's going on in the IVA, it's totally up in the air. Obviously Penn State had 2 tough matches as well and didn't come out on top. But I think right now there's a lot of unknown of, all right, is it going to be Penn State? Is it going to be Princeton? Is it going to be Harvard? Is it going to be George Mason, who we'll get to see tomorrow night? There will be.
Why I had to keep you and Jay separated for this episode.
Yeah, as we were going to duke it out, on Zoom. So yeah, I think Harvard with that crew, they have James Barden setting, who's a Southern California kid from 949 Volleyball Club. And then you have Owen Fanning and Logan Shepard, I think. Fanning and Shepard are 2 pin hitters that are pretty big, pretty physical, and seeing them last year had some tools that it's like, oh, when they're on, they're going to be hard to stop. And I just think they were a little beat up as the year goes on with their limited roster capacity. I think the grueling grind of the season really takes a toll. And then you pair that with the academic stressors that I know a little too well at this point now here as well. That depth becomes more and more important. So if they're able to sustain it and play volleyball like they did night 2 out in Hawaii, I think they're going to be in the mix and give a lot of teams problems in the EIVA.
Yep. Well, one thing I wanted to point out was in that Harvard Hawaii matchup was night 1, the son of Thunder comes on. That would be Kainoa Wade, son of Charlie Wade. 8 kills, 0 errors, hit 533, a dig and 2 block assists, chipping in 9 points in that 3-0 sweep of Harvard. What an exciting moment for the Wade family.
Oh, I mean, such an exciting moment. And what's interesting about that team is you got 3 opposites with Finn, obviously, who's kind of saved the day when they played McKendree the previous week. It obviously comes in serving, saves the day against Harvard. So now you've got three opposites, one of them being the son of Charlie, and all three of them incredibly talented and bringing some really, really impressive talent to the table. So, man, it's going to
And
be.
you could even argue Saganoko is more of an opposite
Yeah,
too.
that's a good point.
Last year.
That's a good point. So they got four.
Anyone would love to have that problem, right?
It's a great problem to have for sure.
All right, Brad already alluded to this one. You had to shake some salt in the wound of Coach Pavlik. Penn State heads to the great state of Illinois, comes out empty-handed. First upset by number 12, Loyola, then by Dan's number 14, Lewis Flyers. What do we think about that matchup in the Midwest? Let's start with you, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shane Davis back at the helm hasn't skipped a beat, knows to set Fabikovich and Parker Van Buren, and all things will be all right in Loyola. And they did that plenty, and it worked great. You know, I think Daniel Fabikovich has picked up where he left off, and going into his sophomore year can end up having a really, really effective sophomore campaign and kind of continue that trend he was on. And then you look at the Lewis matchup, and you got Daniel Haber, who continued to go off, you know, and I didn't get to watch these matches, but just looking at it, seemed like the outside hitters had a lot of success against Penn State. You know, so as Penn State looks to figure out, I think they're still struggling to find their lineup and who their new opposite is. They've just had such a stable crew there for the last 3 or 4 years. It's going to take a little bit of shaking things up and figuring out exactly who's going to end up in what spots and who's going to be their outside, who's going to be their opposite. And Penn State's got a really tough road ahead and a really tough schedule with First Point Challenge coming up and lots more ahead. So excited to see kind of how that team comes together and progresses like they usually do to put themselves in a position to win the IVA.
Yep. Theo.
Yeah, you know, in talking to the Penn State coaches, you know, just a little bit over the summer and kind of throughout the fall, you know, they kind of hinted towards it. They were like, hey, you know, we got a lot to figure out. And this team and this roster, we're learning who we are and kind of creating the culture that we want to have. And, you know, when you're early in January like we are, I typically don't read too much into things, but it's hard to ignore not just that they lost, but how they lost. And the question is, especially when you look at the Lewis match and you know, the first 2 sets being 25-13, 25-15, there are all those 2 questions that you ask. How not so great is Penn State, or how great is Lewis? And as a homer, I should say, for our podcast coach, Dan Friend, I think Lewis is fantastic. And so there's not a whole lot to overlook here. You know, I think Daniel Haber is obviously a fantastic volleyball player, and you know, 11 kills, hit 350, and you know, Lewis just absolutely took it to him. They served the heck out of the ball, incredible heat and super consistent. And I wish Dan was here so that I could give him the props directly to him, but they just absolutely picked this Penn State team apart. And so, yeah, you know, it's interesting. No one would be shocked if in the next 2-3 weeks we're talking about how Penn State bounces back and goes on a 5 or 6 game winning streak. But this was an interesting one for sure, and tip my hat to both Loyola and Lewis. They did a great job.
Yep. You know, Penn State brings back, and they've got Michael Schwob at setter. Great piece to have. One of the top liberos in the nation, and Ryan Merck, and one of the top middles in Owen Rose. And I know I'm leaving someone out here, but I will see them this week at the First Point. But let's just be real. Penn State's going to pick it up. And I wouldn't be picking anyone else right now because Pav has a way of getting his guys dialed in come EIVA conference season. And we talked about this earlier. We still haven't even seen Jay's team yet. And we know he's got some solid outside hitters. So Brad will have to give us the report, the after morning effect, you know, after the match on Tuesday. So we'll get the breakdown.
He purposefully hasn't played anyone so that Brad can't scout anything against him so that they can just show up and surprise him.
Going back in the volumetrics files from last season, you know.
All right, let's jump on to our next match. I was on the chat board quite a bit. It was a series of Ball State visiting Stanford without a big introduction. Let's jump in. Let's go with Brad to start off on this one.
Well, did we learn anything? We just learned Ball State was really good one night, Stanford was really good the other night, and uh,
Well, I
but
figured you would have dorked out on the whole coaching thing because I was trying to figure out what Costi did on night two, adjustment wise, but I figured you guys have the better eye. I just noticed they dug a lot of Tanashi and Davozacheva, and they ended up pulling him in the third set. And defensively, Stanford looked really good. They didn't block a ton, but they dug a lot of balls.
yeah, I
So,
think ultimately from my end is kind of the tale of just kind of I forgot your nickname for him, but Moses Wagner. What'd you call him? Mo Swag
yeah,
last
most
year?
swag.
Mo Swag. I think it was the tale of two nights for Mo Swag, and offensively, when you're a young pin hitter, and in his first full season where he's kind of the guy, where he split a little bit of time last year. But I think, that's going to happen sometimes. You're going to have some nights where the block's just queued up on you, you're not quite in rhythm. And then you saw him respond and bounce back the next night. I think it just goes to tell you kind of and highlight what we were looking at earlier on is really like that bunch of teams in the middle. There's going to be a lot of up and down. There's going to be a lot of swings, especially at this point of the season, So I thought it was impressive just seeing that group kind of after Ball State playing so clean and efficiently, Stanford bouncing back and really just cleaning up their offensive side of things and really finding their connections, finding their rhythm. Yeah, I think it's something we're going to see a lot when teams are playing back to backs. Is it's tough to beat a team twice.
Well, I think most swag actually was good on both nights. It was everyone else they slowed down on night one because he still hit north 340 on both nights with at least double digit kills. So,
Oh, I was looking at the wrong stat sheet. I was looking at Teo. My bad.
all right, Theo, thoughts on the Ball State Stanford matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's impressive if you can sweep a team of that caliber, right? And to see it happen in reverse back to back is something you don't see very often. So yeah, I think Stanford made some nice adjustments. Obviously they slowed them down on night two, and it looked to me like from the service line, it was quite a big difference on night two. And so to get them out of system quite a bit and to have Mo Swag, I mean, I love that name, Mo Swag, man.
Good one.
Yeah, he's just one fantastic volleyball player. I mean, he gave us fits last year, and obviously he gave Ball State the same. And so this Stanford team, I think, is really interesting. They had 9 seniors last year on the roster, and a lot of leadership and a lot of continuity that had been in that program for a really, really long time. And to see a little bit of changeover, maybe not just in the starting group, but also in the bench and kind of how they operate. They got a lot of young guys, and this roster is incredibly talented. And so I feel like we're going to see some inconsistencies. We're going to see a night where they might get swept, and they got the firepower and talent to turn it around and put it on you the next night. And, asking what we learned, Brad, I think that's it. This Stanford team cannot be you can't overlook them. They're capable.
Yep. Well, I remember hanging with Costi at one of the national championships. He's like, Rob, shows me his phone. He's like, this is my recruit coming in. He showed me all these guys like, yeah, they're coming in. He's proud of what he's found. And now these guys are the guys that are getting the stats night in, night out for the card. And, someone had mentioned that they basically graduated 9 super seniors last year. So this is a pretty new team, so to speak. And they're responding well to the coaching. But my question to you as the coaching panel is, with that kind of turn, there had to be a pretty crazy strategic adjustment made because, a 3-0 sweep, they got swept 3-0 night one. They turned it around. I mean, defensively, I was looking at where their libero, and his name is escaping me right now, but are they doing something to at least neutralize that cross-court attack of Indava Zacheva and Rogers? Ooh, stumped you guys, huh?
Yeah, normally I would have already watched this match. I actually watched part of night one, but didn't get to watch night two. And so I couldn't tell you out of the gate, Rob.
It just seemed like there's a lot of really good defense being played, but we'll just leave it at that because we have a few other matches that were big eye catchers for this episode. Number 6, BYU and St. Thomas Aquinas. BYU goes to 4-0 after this weekend, but wanted to get your thoughts on the Cougs. Start with you, Theo.
Yeah, I mean, to no one's surprise, Keone Tim is exactly who we thought he was. It was obviously we had an episode we were talking about some of the big surprises, transfers going into the portal, right? Obviously, Keone leaves Hawaii, and from my understanding, it was really wasn't a personal thing. It's just a disagreement with Charlie, and Keone's an undersized outside hitter, and every coach has their philosophy about what works and what doesn't, and I'm not blaming either party for the disagreements that were had, but Keone decided to pave his own path and took his talents to BYU, and I think it's working out for him so far. Just in the matches that I've been able to watch, he's as good as we thought he could be. And last year, I thought, it obviously was his first year really getting a lot of playing time with Hawaii, and as a serving sub before that, he was incredibly effective from the service line. Then when he became an actual 6 rotation player, didn't feel like his serve was quite the same. And now he gets to BYU as a 6 rotation player, and his serve is lights out. He is absolutely hammering the ball from the line. I saw a clip of him getting an out of system set, triple block. He goes over the top of the block and hits the ball in the corner. Which is as good as any 6'8", 6'9" outside would do. And, Keone has just proven that he was built for this. And the guy works incredibly hard. And you can't look past Luke Benson and what BYU is doing as a whole, because I think when you look at that entire roster, these guys are really talented and incredibly capable. So I think it's going to be really fun to watch them get going. But to see Keone get the start and, really in his last season as a player, to really see him take off is pretty exciting.
All right.
Yeah, that's like you talked about, Theo, that's the beauty of the transfer portal. Like, it's great for Keone, it's great for BYU, and also it's great for Hawaii. Like, they're doing all right too, So I think so many times
you're not saying the other part though, Brad, because I texted you this question last week, but it's not good for the coaches who have to plan. I actually sent that to another coach, David Hunt, last in dealing with that on the women's side. He goes, yeah, it's great for the player, great for the team, sucks for the coaches.
Yeah, for sure. I think, right, and I think for the most part, and what we get to do, it might be a little bit different on the women's side, but in the most part, what we get to do, the players all handle it the right way, and they're doing it with high character and high class, but regardless, you look at BYU, you look at that roster they have, you look at the depth they have at the pins, with 3 pretty good outside hitters, 2 pretty good opposites. I think the X factor to watch and see how it progresses throughout the year is going to be Noah Hain at setting. He's new to that role, at least in terms of the starting lineup. So seeing how he progresses and grows, running the show and leading the team throughout the season I think could be the difference between them, being in contention for the MPSF and contention for going into the NCAA tournament, and then just falling short, because talent-wise and all the attacking positions, they're without a doubt in the mix and just as talented as just about any other program.
Well, Keone Tim hit 458 on night 1, 652 on night 2. Yeah, went bonkers. He's like the human highlight reel. And he's disproving the altitude serving at Provo, because he's got a bunch of aces too. So all you guys who think that the air is affected up there, this is the case that it doesn't. So I love having that conversation on here all the time. But good. The thing is, with Luke Benson, we didn't even mention Mix Ramanis on that team.
Yeah.
Because he's now just I don't want to say he's just a role player, because he can definitely pick up the mantle and take over if he wants to. But when you got a hot hand, Keone Tim and Luke Benson, and their middle, Hale, who's a monster, BYU is going to be good once they dial it all in. So let's jump over to Brad's team, because they're 19-0 in week 2. I think they played close to their full season of matches in the last 2 weeks.
We got to get ready for Big West play, No, it's crazy. We have a stretch, and it started last Friday at Long Beach for the North American Challenge, but a stretch of basically 9 matches over the course of 16 days, which will conclude on Saturday up at Northridge. capping off the Under Armour Invitational that Theo and Northridge are hosting for us, and Purdue Fort Wayne and Lindenwood. But yeah, it's something we knew we were going to have a group that needed some competition and wanted to find our rhythm. So we packed our schedule pretty full. And the crazy part is we were trying to help out some of the other teams as well that lost some matches and didn't end up working out. But yeah, we were looking and finding ways to play as much volleyball as possible.
Awesome. And then with that, it's a good transition over towards Theo, because Theo was hanging out in Santa Barbara for the Santa Barbara tournament, where 3 Big West teams represented. That's UC Santa Barbara, the hosts, CSUN, and UC Irvine, facing off against Tusculum, Missouri A&T, and Menlo College. And wanted to get your thoughts on that tournament, what you saw, Theo.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in that tournament, longer than I've been a player here and or coach. So we love that tournament, and Rick McLaughlin does a fantastic job putting it on, and it's always exciting because every single year it's a different lineup, it's a different group of teams, and it's one heck of a challenge. 3 matches in 3 days, and a lot of turnaround, a lot of scouting, and a lot of good team travel for our guys. But this one was no exception. The talent that was there was fantastic, and we got to play a couple of teams we've never played before. Tusculum and Missouri S&T are teams that Northridge has never competed against, but learned a lot about them, learned a lot about the coaching staff, learned a lot about what those guys are doing. And Missouri S&T, the coach is Ryan Thompson. They're in their 3rd season as a program, and he is doing one heck of a job. I mean, they have every piece that you need. They've got the size, they've got the talent. They are going to be a wrecking this season, and I think they're going to put it on some teams. So they gave Santa Barbara a handful. They gave us a handful. I mean, it was really, really awesome to compete against that group. And seriously, Ryan Thompson is doing a terrific job. If those that don't know, he was the director of Missouri Sting before kind of taking on this position and really getting to go full time. But he's got a roster of a lot of guys and a lot of size, and they're a good group. Menlo was the other surprise that I thought was really cool, and a lot of connection there on the volleyball side of things. Mustafa, their opposite from Turkey, is the real deal, and he let everybody know it. And Ty Carson is the outside playing for them. He's a transfer from Long Beach, who I thought had a really, really, really nice tournament and played well. And then the setter is William Lawler. And for those that don't know, his dad was the head coach at Cal State LA, I think for about 13 years before going to Golden West, and has had his hand in the volleyball world for a really, really long time. Actually, a local high school attendee of Chatsworth High School, which is down the road from Northridge. But that roster and that group, I think they're going to grow a lot over this year and do some really, really nice things. And they're serving great. And that opposite from Turkey, Mustafa, is fantastic. So it was a great tournament. And, obviously all 3 Big West teams went undefeated, dropped a couple of sets, but played some pretty good volleyball. And to talk a little bit about Irvine is really good. And I can see Rob already smiling.
I'm trying to hide it.
But the combination, actually it was funny. Rob and I talked a little bit before things started on the podcast, but they remind me a lot of when Joe Worsley was at Hawaii. A lot of people were curious, like, what is an undersized setter? How do they look? Joe Carlo looks healthy. He looks ready to play. And that team has incredible firepower. We know Heno, we know Darcy, we know Flexen, right? But there's some new talented pieces too, and they showed their talent. And Goss and Enes, I think, is the other one, right, Rob?
Yep, Enes. Yep.
Enes. They got a lot of talent, and Joe Carlo keeps those guys humming. When they were in system, they were fantastic. When they were out of system, Joe was locating the ball at a really, really high level. And that team is definitely going to make some noise in the Big West. And I'm looking forward to see them matching up against Long Beach, who obviously is making some noise early in January.
What I thought was really interesting was their second match, which I believe was against Menlo.
Yep.
Aiden Rigg got the start, freshman setter or redshirt freshman setter from Hawaii, and he looked pretty good too. And he's 6'5", 6'6". Now you put that out there with Flexen, Hano, Grigoriev, really big team out there. So
Big.
he handled that well. I wanted to bounce back over to Brad though, because I had a question for you in regards to your team specifically, but the Bryce Dvorak running the floor is making you guys really good right now. And he's tough from the service line. Can you comment a little bit on that?
Yeah, he's a volleyball rat, and he spent all summer in the gym working with the women's national team as a practice player and really just helping them get ready for any lefties that they were going to see at the Olympic Games. So he's just loves the game, wants to be around the game, competes at a really high level, and the impact he brings from the service line was pretty apparent. He tied a UCSD record or beat a UCSD record with 7 aces in one match. I actually think Donovan, for you, Theo, also had 7 aces either the next night or that same night, which I thought was pretty funny for the Big West setters to have that. And then you pair that with just his ability to add some different dynamics to our offense, with his ability to be so explosive along the net, look to turn and attack, look to make some different plays that some other setters don't traditionally make. It just adds an element, adds a wrinkle to our offense, and it's really been helping us and really has progressed our team another step or two. So definitely fun, definitely some things to work on for him and for us as a group. So excited.
It seemed to me like his connection with Josh was a big step up for you guys too. And seeing Josh really get grooving attacking wise, and obviously it seemed like Bryce had a really big role in that. So exciting to see, man. You guys are playing some good ball.
Yeah, every setter is a little bit different, and like every setter, it's so strange. And Rob, you probably know a little bit better than us, being a former setter, but it's like you could set some players just a little bit better, and it's just a natural connection, whether it's how you set the ball, how the ball comes out of your hands, how they like to hit the ball, the path of the ball, and we're starting to see that come to light with a few of our guys, and and see it get to work on with a few of the other guys. But it's just really fun to watch an offense start to develop and change as we get into different phases of the season.
Yep. I'm going to bounce back over to Theo because his guys had a phenomenal weekend, particularly Donovan Constable and Jalen Phillips, who got the beast mode player of the nights. And without even realizing it, 2 Northridge players in 3 nights of play. I'm like, is Theo paying me? No, because my Venmo is empty. So talk about their play.
Yeah, I mean those are kind of our 2 horses, and specifically the guys who have some experience. Most of our roster is really new. We graduated a lot of seniors and a lot of talent, and we added a lot of new guys. And the 2 guys that everyone recognizes and are really, really good are still there. And Donovan and Jalen both had fantastic tournaments. I think both of them were all tournament players. Jalen got off to a little bit of a slow start. I think he hit 200 on the first night. And after that, he never looked back. I think he hit 400 and 500 the next 2 nights and was absolutely just rolling. Really took him some time to find himself, but he's rolling. Donovan, all 3 matches was just absolutely fantastic. He's maturing quite a bit as a person and as a setter, and learning what it takes to really bring a young group together. And we have 2 brand new middles, 2 outsides that didn't, Lorenzo Bertozzi was with us last year, but was on the right and didn't get a whole lot of playing time. So he's getting some experience on the left. And so to bring this young roster together and to find a way to make it fire on all cylinders, Donovan's doing a tremendous job. So was super proud of the guys this weekend. I thought they played really hard.
Yep. I'm going to go back to an Irvine guy, my hood, but Hilaire Hano sets the career ace record at UC Irvine. 185 and counting, surpasses Carson Clark, one of the 4-time All-Americans from UC Irvine from 2009 to 2012, who just was inducted to the UC Irvine Athletics Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Hilaire Hano. With that, I want to mention Long Beach State had 1 match against St. Francis, 1-0 on the weekend. And can't avoid, since this is the Big West takeover, UC Santa Barbara looked really good. It's good to see George Bruning back on the court if you're a Gaucho, because that's 6'11" of outside hitter on your side of the net. If you're playing against him, maybe not so much, but it's good to see him back out on the court. And UCSB switching it up with the setters between Jack Walmer and Cole Schobel to transfer from Loyola. So Rick's got a pretty good bench going there, at least from a quarterbacking standpoint.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Rob. The depth and talent that he has is just tremendous, and to have two setters like that, kind of duking it out is a good problem to have, right? I mean, it's a really good problem to have. And you didn't even mention Jess Bianchi, who
oh yeah, well, because he got his standard 25 kills. I mean, who has to talk about that?
He's just doing his normal Jess Bianchi things. Yeah, I mean that team is really, really great, and Owen Berg.
Yep.
is who was a setter. For those who haven't seen him play middle, you'd think he's been doing it his whole life. He is really doing some special things up at the net, and Santa Barbara looks really good, super deep, and a lot of talent to cycle through. Rick's got his hands full over there.
Yep. Also another place with lots of opposites, and Rick's been finding new spots for him, right? George was an opposite, transitioned to the left side. Jess has continued to play opposite at an extremely high level and arguably one of the best in the country over the past year and a half or so. And then you got Owen Berg, who his freshman year was on the right side for Santa Barbara before getting hurt. And then you got guys like Owen Longcar, who are now in the middle, Sam Meister, who is now in the middle. So, yeah, lots of talent. And it's always exciting seeing how Rick gets it all together and gets it to mesh throughout the course of the season, throughout the year.
So I can ask this question because of the participants in today's talk, but how fun is the Big West going to be this year, gentlemen?
It's going to be some dogfights. It's which is kind of what we've always expected, but yeah, there's going to be some really tough teams. So every weekend is going to be a blast, and I really I've heard it from a few coaches I've been talking with, but in terms of being a passer in the Big West, it's going to be one of the tougher years. There's going to be a ton of gnarly servers, a ton of different types of servers, and lots of heat, lots of depth changes, lots of range from the end line to pair with some really deep, really talented teams.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Brad hit it on the head. There's no place that I'd rather be as a coach. It couldn't be more exciting. The talent level and just the level of volleyball being played in the Big West is just tremendous. It's through the roof. It helps me become a better coach. Scouting these teams is no easy task, and it's so fun, man. I'm looking forward to the season.
All good stuff. It will be an exciting season, and we still have a couple months before that gets started out. But with that, I want to transition into standout players or the ballers of the week. And let's start with you, Theo.
Yeah, you already mentioned him once, but Hilir Heno is on my list. 9 kills, hit 500 against Menlo, 4 aces, and honestly, I don't know if he broke a sweat. Made it look like it was no big deal, just another walk in the park. And then Keone Tim, we already talked about him a little bit, but his emergence and his rise and as a player at BYU, I mean, he was just absolutely fantastic this week, and I think we're going to be talking about him quite a bit this year in the podcast.
Yep. How about you, Brad?
Yeah, I think Heno is a great shout out, just especially honoring, Irvine's had a ton of great servers, and surpassing that record and with essentially his entire senior season ahead of him as well. To see where that number ends up is a little scary for any future servers on the end line for Irvine looking to beat that record. So great shout out there. I got Mo Swagner from Stanford opposite, especially since I messed up his stats looking at the wrong stat sheet for night one. And then my second one, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna shout out Barry. We're going Philip Tien from Barry, just winning 3-0 in their first weekend of being a team. I think that's pretty remarkable, and to come in and be able to do that in their first year in the first program, want to give them some love.
Well, I'm gonna chuck in my 2 here, and it's a tandem from the same team because being sick this last weekend means I got to watch a lot of volleyball on stream. So shout out to Parker Van Buren and Daniel Fabakovic. That is one wicked tandem of outside hitters on one team. Those are some long dudes that are hitting the ball really hard and consistently. So super fun watching Loyola just doing their thing, especially with the win over Maryville and Penn State this last weekend. Sorry, Pav. But let's transition into what you're watching this week. And after our 65 plus matches in week 2, I think we go down to like just over 50. So, and Brad, I think only has like 2 matches. So good for him on that one.
3.
Oh, he'll be 25-0 by the end of week 3. Oh, sorry, Jay. I know you still have to play tomorrow. So, but what are you guys watching?
I'll start it off because we are hosting the inaugural and the first Under Armour Challenge is what we're calling it. And essentially, UCSD, CSUN, PFW, and Lindenwood are all going to be in Northridge. We are hosting it. And we're not playing against Brad, so the Big West teams won't play each other, but we will alternate between playing PFW and Lindenwood on Friday and Saturday night. And we're really excited about it. This thing has been in the works for quite some time, and the goal for it is to be at a Midwest school next year. So whether it's PFW or Lindenwood, then bring it back to the West Coast and have Brad host it, and kind of a 4-year cycle. So we're pretty excited about it.
All right, just those 3 matches.
Oh, I'll come back. Brad can go next, and then
all right.
Rob, I'll save your plug for you, so I won't touch on any of those matches that I know you're going to be getting to. So I got, first off, Long Beach St. Louis. I think that's going to be a really entertaining one, and some really high-level volleyball. And then BYU Ball State is another one that I'm really excited to see how some of those teams shake out, and how they get as they get into some more and more competition throughout the year.
Sounds good. I'm going to hit the 4 that I'm working. I'll be at the First Point Challenge in Austin, Texas. That's going to be UCLA, Stanford, Penn State, and Ohio State. Always a good, solid core of matches and a huge crowd, which has been awesome to see, where there is no men's volleyball, apparently, at least collegiate volleyball, but there's definitely demand, and seeing the excitement, especially, and the quality of the play that's going to be there, it's going to be phenomenal and exciting. And a shout out to Glenn and Kathy Litsky, who have put this on for the last 4 years, and just their vision and their passion for this to expand men's volleyball is immeasurable. They have such great enthusiasm to see the men's volleyball grow in so many places, and them bring it to the Austin Convention Center is such a great thing. So looking forward to those 4 matches starting Friday and Saturday. And need to put this out there, the UCLA Penn State match has been taken on by ESPNU, which I believe is going to be before a Love VB match that night too. So it's going to go men's volleyball on ESPNU and then over to this Love match immediately afterwards. So we're coattailing on some of the success on the women's side of things. So those are what I'm watching this week, but there are other ones I wanted you guys to hit on as well. Let's go back to Theo.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of good ones. The George Mason Swing of San Diego and Grand Canyon, I think, is going to be pretty dang exciting. Obviously, anytime we get a podcast matchup, we're excited to see them duke it out. That's going to be a fun one. Barry and Long Island. I think, obviously after a start of being undefeated, be nice to see them take on Long Island and see what Long Island's got going on over there. That team, brand new coaching staff, and I think that could be an exciting matchup. And then you've got BYU and Ball State.
Yeah.
Which that could be an epic duel right there. And, obviously Ball State, split with Stanford. BYU is absolutely humming right now. So be interesting to see how those two match.
But there's that old wives' tale that you always hear. BYU doesn't play well on the road. I don't believe it. I just hear the chatter.
Well, they do have like a 90% win percentage at home. So compare that to anything else, and it might seem like they don't play well on the road. I think they'll be just fine.
Weren't they just fine in Ohio State last weekend?
What's that?
Weren't they just fine at Ohio State last weekend?
Yes, they were.
Just fine.
All right, Brad, what you watching?
Oh, I already hit mine. I had BYU Ball State as well. And then the Long Beach, the Midwest swing out there. And then I think another under the radar one. Oh, where to go? Belmont Abbey versus Catawba will be a fun one.
Oh, another Conference Carolinas versus the Independent again. The Independents have the Conference Carolinas number right now, so we'll see if they can begin to level things out. I only wanted to add one more because we kind of referenced it earlier on in the show, but I think Barry, I mean, they're the big talk, and they're going to be at FDU against Carl Francis' team. Carl, we'll be watching you. So looking forward to the matchups this week. With that, just so you guys know, we're doing a special part 2 because we had a Big West takeover for part 1 this morning. That's Theo Edwards of CSUN, Brad Rothschitter of UC San Diego. Good luck this week, gentlemen. Look forward to chatting as a group with everyone next Monday. And best of luck in your match.
Rob, while we're still in the Big West trust tree, okay, because I know Jay won't listen all the way to the end on his flight. Can you get the starting lineup for his match tomorrow out of him?
I will do. I'll sneak that text. Hey, Brad, or hey, Jay, I need your starters. So
hey, we're going to do questions from a fan, you know?
I'll do that tonight when I ask him.
Perfect.
All right, gentlemen, have a good rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.